Welcome into On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton. I'm joined by Gerry Hamilton of On Texas Football. We're here to talk about the surprises thus far of fall camp. Gerry, it has been an interesting couple of weeks since Steve Sarkisian and his group have gotten back after it. Let's talk about the surprises, and let's start with one that surprised even Steve Sarkisian himself, and that is the health of CJ Baxter, the running back out of Orlando, going into his what would be a true junior year, but he's a redshirt sophomore because he was injured last season, tore his ACL, PCL, MCL, every CL you could do. But he's getting carries, significant carries in both Longhorn scrimmages. What's your take on how much Texas can use him and just how big of a surprise this is?
I think it's always a surprise until they get through the contact phase, returning off that injury. And I think that's where the staff was. And that's why Sark said they were even taking it very slow and cautious with CJ Baxter, because the reality is until somebody gets hit and takes multiple hits on that knee, you don't know until they react to that. They have to get through without any setbacks once the contact phase starts, which CJ Baxter's done. How much Texas can use him? Let's just talk about the opener. Short yardage, goal line, pass pro. I think he can be a valuable piece to this team. I think Trey Weisler is your workhorse in that game, but CJ Baxter is the best red zone back Texas has. He's the best pass pro. I think he's the best short yardage inside zone runner Texas has. I think he has a place. Now he's still he's wearing the big knee brace, so he's not going to be close to 100% in terms of once he gets outside that guard center guard box. When you start cutting and having to accelerate, I think that's where there's going to be a difference for him. But inside running, red zone, goal line, and even in pass pro where he's really good, I think he can help Texas against Ohio State.
I just, for the health of the team and not just for himself, I just got to say this. He willed himself to this.
Yes.
I just so impressive. And I think we all took a normal level of reticence going into it. And now there's some excitement surrounding it because he might get more than we thought against Ohio State, and that can be a big deal. Gerry, you wanted to go second with the emergence of Anthony Smith at linebacker. Texas had an experienced linebacking core coming back, and not only Anthony Hill, the big playmaker, first-team preseason All-American, but also Leonga Lafau started last year, young man out of Hawaii. And then they moved Trey Moore from end to outside linebacker. They really, if you look at it, they didn't have big numbers there, but Anthony Smith, apparently having just an amazing fall camp.
Yeah, amazing fall camp. And let's get just again, I'll reiterate, Steve Sarkisian called him a budding star at SEC Media Days. Then after the scrimmage, the first scrimmage, he came back Monday and said it's having a great camp. All right, so let's move that out of the way. What does his emergence truly mean to Texas? I think it enabled Texas to move Brad Spence to edge. And I think it's another piece, and maybe the most important piece to this is they can take selective few snaps off Anthony Hill's plate this year as long as this core stays healthy at linebacker, meaning to Anthony Smith, to where Anthony Hill won't be as beat up come hopefully playoff time, last couple of games of the year plus playoff time like he was last year. If you have that depth at linebacker and you can alleviate some of those snaps off Anthony Hill and not feel like it's a huge drop-off, that makes Anthony Hill a better player when you need him most late in the season and hopefully into the college football playoffs. So it does a few things, but then I think with Anthony Smith, look, I just think the guy's a great player, a future NFL player. I think he adds big-time speed and playmaking to the linebacker position outside the tackle boxes.
All right, before we get to number 3, and I think it's going to be a surprise to some folks who we picked at number 3, I want to say special thanks to Dr. Brett Robin, the former Longhorn running back, now at the Austin Orthopedic Institute. He's sponsoring On Texas Football this season. He knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages. Specializing in musculoskeletal health, Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with conservative approach first, but also offers advanced surgical options if necessary, including all orthoscopic procedures, fracture management, even total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000. Jerry, you and I talked about this before this show in our pre-meeting. We debated what level we should go here, but we went with interior defensive tackle. And I think that it's important that we note who we went with, because one young man, it's not just one player, it's two that we're going to talk about. One young man has taken the next step that was already on campus. Another guy arrived in the winter and then almost immediately got surgery, and we didn't know what Texas would be getting. But in both instances, Travis Shaw out of North Carolina and Alex January out of Duncanville have stepped up from what we've heard behind the scenes in this camp to be two of the more productive defensive linemen on the interior that Texas feels like they can count on this football season. That is big news, because Texas lost 6 defensive tackles, 4 to graduation or the NFL and 2 to the portal. And yet they've got some more guys coming in. Shaw and January, extremely important to the success of the Longhorns in 2025.
Yeah, I feel really good about that first 4 rotation, more than likely, with this Alex January stepping up. You know, we'd heard behind the scenes future NFL prospect, but you didn't see enough snaps clearly as the Texas staff did on practice on a day-to-day basis. But he stepped up, and if he starts game 1, that's pretty impressive considering the talent there. And that's how far he's come. But then you put him with Cole Brevard, and you put Murad Watson, you put Travis Shaw, who's been a guy that's been tough to move, but also a guy that's made some plays behind the line of scrimmage from what we've heard in fall camp at 6'5", 340, a former 5-star recruit. If he's kind of going to have that contract year, so to speak, for Texas, then that first 4 is really talented. And then you have the great depth behind it with Hero Kanu and Levon Johnson, and even the freshman Josiah Sharman, Myron Charles. So this depth is built out really well at this position, and it could not have happened without Alex January taking the big step in year 2 and Travis Shaw coming back off his knee surgery and looking like maybe the best player. We might see the best version of Travis Shaw as a college player this year. Texas fans certainly hope so.
I love it, because I think Shaw is that big, round body you got to have in the SEC, man. 340 pounds, and you need some disruption. And I think Alex January, he blocked the kick in the scrimmage on Saturday. I mean, he's moving people with some quickness. Those two are going to be big parts of it. Before we go to our 4th and 5th pleasant surprises, I think we've got to mention maybe some disappointments.
Yeah.
Okay. And this isn't like they're performing poorly. It's just their lack of performance generally. And that's 2 injuries. And we don't know the depth of either of them really, because they've just been sidelined. And that's Emmett Mosley, the 5th out of Stanford. The wide receiver has not participated in either of the scrimmages. He's on the sidelines in gear and all this other stuff, but whether it's his lower leg or what have you, he's not playing. And then also Jonah Williams, the superstar out of Galveston Ball that we had such high expectations for, he also has been sidelined, we believe, with a hamstring injury at this point. I would say those 2 injuries, Jerry, you kind of circle and say they would add a lot of depth, especially Mosley at wide receiver, and then obviously Williams in not only in potentially the return game, but also even at safety and in special teams generally. Those nagging injuries, I think, are hurting the depth of the Longhorns.
Yeah, definitely at the wide receiver position with Mosley, because look, Mosley was brought in to be the 3rd starter, Parker Livingston your 4th, and those are your top 4 wide receiver headed into the season. Well, you're down a guy that started 9 Power 4 games as a true freshman and had over 500 yards receiving. So that's not ideal. I think that is the number 1 negative to come from camp, maybe outside of an Andre Kojo getting injured. But Jonah Williams, while we didn't know what to expect in terms of safety, and probably a guy we could add on this list, Xavier Phil-Samiz had a big fall camp. But Jonah Williams is just such a high-level competitor and such a great talent that he was expected to make an impact on the Longhorns from day one, whether that was in the return game, whether that was in special teams or whatnot. And the fact that Texas may roll into Ohio State without either of those guys playing, we'll see what happens with Emmett Mosley and Jonah Williams. Sark and his staff has had to adjust from some of the things they put on paper before the start of fall practice.
All right, let's get back to the positives.
Yep.
And the fourth one we had was Parker Livingstone. We mentioned him, big receiver. He had a great spring. He was the number one receiver in spring because Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore were sidelined for much of spring ball. So we got a lot of rapport and built it with Arch Manning. That is seen through to fall camp. It's a surprise to us that he's solidified the role so quickly, but he's played really well and had a pair of really good scrimmages. That first scrimmage, Livingstone may have been the best receiver on the field.
He really fits Arch Manning's skill set. And I think that's a big thing when you look at wide receivers and how they're going to fit into a team, into an offense. He really, because he's a long strider and he's a downfield route runner and a guy that is a really good double move route runner, a guy that has sneaky speed because of that long stride. Arch wants to throw it down the field. Ideally, in an ideal world, Sark wants to push the ball down the field. What does that mean? If Parker Livingstone is a clean catcher of the football at 6'4", he's got a chance to have an impact on this team, and he has done that to this point. And I can't stress that enough. He really fits what Arch does as a quarterback, and Livingstone. So Arch fits Livingstone, Livingstone fits Arch. That's a really strong combination between those two. Because I don't think Parker's skill set would have fit Quinn Ewers as well as it does Arch Manning. And Parker has made the most of these opportunities and has now placed himself in the top three. We'll see what happens when in one of the top four when Emmett Mosley comes back. Those are the four guys you're going to see most at wide receiver this year, and he's worked his way into that rotation and in position to start the opener.
I look at it, Jerry, and I've got to say this. Those are all fine and good. They're kind of piecemeal discussion points, whether it's Baxter or Anthony Smith, Travis Shaw and Alex January, Parker Livingstone, but they're not fundamental changes in how you approach things. I mean, the last one that we have for our surprise is the idea that Michael Taff, a 2-year returning starter at safety, may be the starter at nickel. That fundamentally changes how you even look at this thing. And apparently he's looked really good there. They've moved Jalen Gilbo as part of this to cornerback. So he's fighting to keep off Kobe Black at that opposite position of Manny Muhammad. But this allows them to rotate Taff and McDonald at nickel, keeping Derek Williams deep. It just gives the idea that Michael Taff is going to be your starting nickel. I did not have that on my bingo card going into this training camp. And now I think we do. Period.
I think the return of Derek Williams to the field and passing those tests, kind of like CJ Baxter has also enabled Texas to take a strong look at this. Because without a healthy Derek Williams, I'm not sure this truly happens. So that is big in all this too. But yeah, what it does is it gives Texas more versatility in what they can do in their back end. While I think the goal is to get the 5 best defensive backs on the field. Rod talks about that's always Dwayne Akina's goal in his time at Texas prior. How do you get the 5 best defensive backs on the field? Well, if Derek Williams is back healthy, he's one of those 5. So then what do you do to get those 5 best on the field? Well, you have to have Michael Taft play some at nickel. And then, as you mentioned, you can have him and Jelani as kind of interchangeable parts from time to time. But that is how you get the best 5 on the field. And I think this has worked out really well for Texas. The fact that Kenodo Hudson believes Michael Taft can play that nickel effectively enough to get those 5 guys on the field at the same time.
There's also been a number of other surprises. We're just doing a top 5 list today, but Grayson Littleton, even better than expected. Young man out of the Tampa area, has had a really good camp. KJ Lacey, the quarterback, has had a great camp as well. He's pushing folks up and down the roster at quarterback. Then you also have guys that like Christian Clark that have been really positive. Brandon Baker at starting right tackle has had a good camp. There are some still questions out there, and we may go over those a little bit later. But starting offensive line, are they gelling? Is the secondary gelling as well? There's some questions too, but the surprises are many. And I think that overall, Jerry, what this is indicative of is a team that has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
It's a team that is ripe to have these sort of pleasant surprises. All right.
Yes.
But that's going to do it. Thanks to Dr. Brett Robin for his sponsorship. Also, thank you to our producer, Matt Hutchison, as well as you, Gerry Hamilton, and all you guys out there for watching. This has been On Texas Football. You guys have a good day. Hook 'em.